Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's a second heavily green week in a row. Start to get a little bit worried, but yeah, £26,000 up for the week. Can't complain. It's quite spread across the board as well, not just sort of Bitcoin going up. And a lot of people have been saying sort of dominance, Bitcoin dominance, has been increasing a bit. So this was just altcoins sort of swapping into Bitcoin. But if the altcoins are all up sort of similar percentages, then you'd have to think this is sort of new money coming in. So, or maybe new money coming into Bitcoin and existing Bitcoin holders, going a bit more into altcoins. But yeah, it's interesting. And if they all sort of keep going up, then yeah, possibly means institutions getting in. So let's have a look at the news. So the bulk of the move does just seem to be ETF hype still. This has sort of been various, reports of things getting approved and things potentially getting approved. People were making a very big deal of the DTCC listing of BlackRock's ETF. It basically means they bought or registered a ticker, which it looks like is IBTC, which I thought was a great ticker. Some of the previous ones have been sort of a little bit odd, but IBTC, if they can have that, it just sort of rolls off the tongue, and people are just going to immediately think of that when they think of anything sort of buying Bitcoin in pensions and all sorts. But this sort of apparently doesn't really mean all that much. The DTCC do list potential ETF tickers, and this has actually been on there since August. People just sort of noticed it, and it sort of went off for a little bit and then came back on again. I believe ARK Invest have also listed theirs with them, and it's not, they say it's not indicative of an outcome for any outstanding regulatory or other approval process in respect of a particular ETF fund. So it doesn't really mean all that much. It's just, registering a ticker if it were to get approved. And the DTCC may process the transaction at an undetermined date in the future following SEC approval. So basically, it's all still with Gary and co. And I feel like we're sort of rehashing old ground, but Gary has sort of said publicly that they'd have 8 to 10 spot ETF applications in front of them, which the team, he sort of specified a different team that are going over these. Not, it's not just up to him, of course, even if there are sort of 5 commissioners. He's chief commissioner, but he sort of mentioned that another team were essentially looking at it. He has been sort of trying to, it seems like, distance himself from the decision. So he may sort of, take this as a little bit of a side win, if they get approved, and he'll sort of say, well, it's the team, it's not me, I have to sort of take the team's view into consideration, where, he might still say, personally, I still disagree with it, but he'll sort of take that as a sort of slight win, or sort of avoiding an embarrassment. But of course, the expectation is still that a load of these, maybe sort of all of the 8 to 10 would get approved at the same time, or sort of at least half a dozen of them to sort of avoid anti-competition rules. So potentially a load of them getting approved on day one would be good, and you've got to think sort of BlackRock's team and Fidelity's team and people like that are going to throw an awful lot of resources at trying to sell this ETF. I did hear somebody sort of say ETFs are sold, they're not bought. So it's the providers pushing it to clients rather than sort of clients going to these people and saying, I would like to buy this. It's sort of more something that gets recommended to fund managers on the institutional side, at least. I expect people, the public will just want to buy it as soon as it comes out. But yeah, we'll see. More sort of slow Ethereum news. They have a big fork coming up, it seems, called Denkun. This is, I believe, the Cancun, Deneb forks basically rolled into one. They're calling it Denkun. And they've sort of announced that this, I believe, will be going. They will not have the testnet will not have the Denkun upgrade implemented until late November. So, yeah, it's I guess if it's two large forks sort of rolled into one, then maybe it does take a little bit of time. But yeah, we've sort of been here before with the merge and Ethereum 2.0. It was sort of delayed for years, really. So, no huge surprise that that's been sort of pushed back, and it's only going on testnet in late November. And the burning, at least in the last week, has sort of increased slightly. It's still below the amount issued, but supply isn't sort of really increasing all that much. Come on to the 30-day, it sort of shows it a bit more starkly. It was just a fairly solid uptrend, and then for the last week, it's essentially leveled off. So that's quite good. Hopefully, this sort of continues, and we see sort of more burning, more usage, because it was starting to look slightly worrying for Ethereum. That the talk was, of course, that a lot of their transactions that used to be on Ethereum and were causing all of this burning are moving over to layer twos, which is sort of their preferred scaling method. So yeah, if that were to continue and you sort of don't get a huge amount of burning, then the sort of part of the value idea goes away a little bit with the sort of deflationary circulating supply compared to Bitcoin's sort of low inflation. But yeah, if they can sort of keep this up and have maybe a very low rate, it probably still would be. I mean, if you annualize this last 7 days, which isn't really the thing to do because it's quite volatile, but yeah, it would be less than Bitcoin's supply growth of 0.06% per year. So that's very low. But if you look at the 30-day, it is still 0.33% per year. So it's not exactly huge, but it's not quite as much as it had been. Dropping 0.19% a year, which with Ethereum at sort of 1.5%, I think it is. It looked a lot better. So let's see what happens. Just looking at this great big sort of falling wedge trade idea that a few people have got on as well, and I've been sort of paying close attention to. The idea was that if we sort of zoom out, this has been, playing out for quite a long while. If you sort of maybe don't include that, the very start of Ethereum pretty much, but this sort of first bull market and retrace, then you can sort of take this as a large falling wedge, sort of multiple touches, and the sort of trade idea was that it would bounce off the bottom of this wedge and sort of bump around for a little bit and then maybe sort of really start to break out next year. But with all the sort of presumably the ETF news and sort of Ethereum not really getting used all that much, it's not following Bitcoin up, it's not sort of outperforming as you'd normally expect it to do. The Ethereum Bitcoin ratio has now fallen below the wedge. So whether this is a temporary sort of fall below it and it's about to come back up, we don't know, or maybe I've just drawn the wedge slightly wrong, but it's certainly not sort of bounced straight off it, and not 100% sure of my trade idea of swapping a little bit of Bitcoin into Ethereum. We'll have to see how it goes. Obviously, if you wait until sort of all the good news comes back into Ethereum, then you may be too late, and it may have sort of already be outperforming. You've got to do it generally in the bad times, but yeah, I've never really been a massive sort of Ethereum fundamental fan, just sort of with all the L2s really. And we've had another Misari report, the XRP Ledger. Not really one of my sort of huge positions, but I do keep an eye on things like this. This was, of course, the quarter that it was ruled to not be a security, aside from the Ripple team selling it to institutions, which I guess can be a security, and they might get sort of still done for that. But yeah, some sort of interesting numbers here. I don't really look at sort of price and circulating market cap and that sort of thing. Revenue is interesting. Sort of fee revenue, of course, that's down 23%, but heavily up on the sort of previous quarters. Yeah, spiked sort of 220%, and then has sort of trailed back down again. But I have to watch what happens in future quarters. Of course, we're not going to get another one of these until late January, so moves may have already happened by then. Daily active addresses down and sort of continually down, really, down from Q3 2022, which was not a good quarter at all, and it's not increasing since the ruling, because that was in July. You thought sort of it being considered not a security, people that have been on the sidelines may have sort of piled back in, but not at the moment. It's still reducing. Daily transactions are down 9.1%. New addresses are sort of bumbling around the same amount, really. DEX volume is up 390%, but that's yeah, sort of a yearly high, I guess. Quite a bit higher than sort of Q4 2022, which was a fairly bad quarter. So it seems to be doing its own thing as far as DEX volume goes. Sort of dropped pretty hard last quarter and then has risen to new highs. So not too bad. And NFT transactions are sort of all over the place. Only just started late last year and has sort of dropped down and is sort of slightly increasing. So yeah, they do seem to be sort of largely doing their own thing, but not entirely sure what they want to be. I never thought of it as an NFT platform, but see what they want to do with it. Oh, and they just give you the quarterly revenue in XRP, of course. If you look at this in dollars, of course, the token going up has some part to do with that, because it was about 35 cents in Q4 2022 and 52 cents across. I guess they take this at the end of the quarter, and yeah, if you look at it in XRP terms, it's not sort of quite as good, down 36% from last quarter, where in USD it was only down 23%, which is because of the price. So always good to look at it in the native tokens terms, I think. Fees as well are up quite a bit. Sort of fees were, heavily up from last year, and are sort of trailed back, but still heavily up from last year, about triple sort of what they were. So higher fees, although it's still in a tenth of a cent, really. Just digging into those addresses as well, still seeing a lot of new addresses, 160,000 over the last quarter. Quite a lot of deleted addresses, and there was a huge spike in Q2, 100,000, over 100,000 deleted addresses. So I don't know what happened there, whether they had some sort of purge, but that's 33,000 deleted addresses, and sort of total still increasing. But if daily active addresses are down, then yeah, 4.8 million total addresses. That's about 1% of total addresses are active, which isn't really great. I sort of not sure whether they do give this stat or whether I missed it on other chains. So there's lots of other developments in here, which I'm sort of happy to admit I don't really quite understand. I'm not a dev. I kind of leave that sort of to the devs and just sort of have a quick overview to see new things are being developed, which it looks like they are. They do, unfortunately, sort of they appear to be the leading company, or one of the leading companies in developing CBDCs, which none of us really want, but you sort of have to accept that they are coming. So you may as well have a dog in the fight, which XRP seems to be one of those coins. And yeah, their sort of closing summary, the SEC case was a kind of a win. Following the news, XRP price spiked over 70% in a single day, and it is now sort of, they don't really mention that it is basically back to what it was before that spike. And yeah, DEX volume was up 400% quarter on quarter. That's down since, but yeah, looking sort of reasonably good. So I do think they need to sort of have these numbers start going up again, otherwise it'll just be seen as a sort of a very temporary spike that just faded away. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on it, even if it is only a fairly small position. So looking at the coins for the week, it's, as I say, very sort of spread out. Bitcoin up 15%. That's been sort of the big mover for me, of course. Ethereum up 10%, sort of contributing to that wedge pattern falling apart, not quite doing as well as Bitcoin. Solana 13.8%, that's pretty good. Chainlink 20.5%, that's been doing really well. A lot of sort of enthusiasm with their interoperability, sort of Oracle new connections. Looks good. Cardano 15%, about the same as Bitcoin. XRP sort of 6.5%. The sort of, they do seem to do their own thing in terms of price. Power Ledger about 10%. That did sort of spike quite high during the week. That was about sort of nearly 30 pence, and it's back down to 20 pence. But yeah, not doing too bad. Quant up 19%. This one was one that I was sort of considering selling off not so long ago, so glad I sort of held on to that for now, but I will be keeping an eye on it. Audius 20%, pretty good. Matic 11%. Basic attention token 8%. Not quite so good. Gala, again, one that I was sort of considering getting rid of. Sort of kind of glad that I didn't. That's up 36% for the week. I've not sort of read the news whether their legal issues have been sort of resolved, but guessing that may have with that sort of rise. We'll still be keeping an eye on it as maybe one to take a bit of profit. Well, not take profit, take a loss on, and maybe get out. And then VeChain 13% and Internet Computer 19%. So again, sort of clawing back a bit of loss on these three, but yeah, maybe I'll hold on a little bit longer if we get a nice move. So yeah, if we're across the board, maybe it's just the time to hold on. Although it does seem a lot in a short space of time. I was kind of expecting sort of more bullish activity next year, so kind of expecting some of this to fade. Maybe a bit of a sell the news event if we do get an ETF approval even. But let's see. So leave your thoughts in comments below if you guys are doing well, if you're buying anything, and like and subscribe. See you soon.